Test. Testing the sound out. Testing the sound out. Testing the sound out. Because I don't. Hopefully you guys can hear me over this. Maybe turn it down a little bit. That's cool. Boom, boom, boom. Boom, boom, boom. All right. Three tools that I'm using to study for my Cisco CCNA 200-301 exam. So before I even get into all of that, you know I got to give you a backstory. You know I gotta run my mouth a little bit. I'll include a timestamp where the video starts, but I just want to give a little update. Man, this YouTube and stuff is a journey. This is a legitimate job. I don't know how you big YouTubers do it, or even the medium YouTubers, or even small YouTubers. I don't even consider myself a small YouTuber. I'm just an overall rookie because there's so much that goes into making videos, more than I suspected or expected. It's ridiculous. So you guys probably recall on my first video, I said that I want to do like a little study time show where it's either a live show or I'm just recording it, where I'm doing some practice. Like I wanted to do some subnetting practice, for instance. And I thought that would have been straightforward, right? Just boot up my Mac and download OBS, get the soundtrack, get the introduction, like, you know, put everything together, which is what I did. I downloaded everything. I created the artwork, the visuals and stuff like that for the intro. I created the soundtracks and all of those things. I try to, you know, make the production value a little bit, you know, decent, right? And I thought this was going to be straightforward. Just turn on the stream and it'll be streaming, or hit record and it'll record. Come to find out that my little MacBook, because I have the 2012 MacBook Pro, my little MacBook cannot handle all of that. It cannot stream. It can't even record in OBS. I don't even know what it could do as far as production within the space of video, right? I use the MacBook to do my my articles. I use it to record my podcasts, and you know it's a decent daily driver. I've never had an issue with it. But when it came time to stream and record and all of that stuff in OBS, it was not working. So that put threw a little wrench in my plans as far as doing study time, because I just wanted to do, you know, just walk you guys through how I study, you know, do some subnetting practice, maybe show you guys a few things, because that's what I'm up to right now with the CCNA. I'm in the subnetting chapter, or towards the end of the subnetting chapter, and I feel like I got a good grasp on subnetting. So I figured I'd create a show around study time. It was going to be called Study Time, right? It's going to be the active recall show where nuance meet ideas, right? I think it's a cool little slogan, right? I put all of that together, and that it just wasn't working. But I got the experience. That's the I guess the positive silver lining behind it. You know what else is the silver lining? I decided that since I'm not a quitter, I'm gonna go ahead and go buy the M1 Mac Mini, right? I bought the base model, 256 gigabytes SSD storage and 8 gigabytes of memory. It's simply amazing. I think that Mac is amazing, right? It's the first computer that I bought in 9 years. So I'm excited. I have it. I tested it. So I'm actually able to do those shows. It's gonna be fun. Like I said before, the whole purpose of this channel is to document my journey studying for and taking these exams, and maybe teaching you some things along the way, helping you along the way. And you know, I'm more so targeting people who are going through career transitions like myself. But if you're younger, you can definitely watch it. I'm 33 years old, so I'm more so targeting people that are my age, going through a career transition, all that stuff. But you know, if you're younger, you can follow along as well. But that's what I want to do. I want to do these shows, do some subnetting practice. Maybe you guys can help me out along the way with regards to some of the things that I'm working on, because by no means, and I want to make this clear from the beginning, by no means am I an IT professional. I'm just trying to make it in this world, right? I'm just trying to make it in this world, make some content, and get some certificates and go through a career transition. That's all this channel is really about. That's a dope ass BMW, but that's all this channel really is. I'm really just trying to transition into the IT field, create some content while I'm doing it, because I love creating content. As I mentioned before, I write articles on Medium. This is more of my leadership content. And I also do podcasts, which is where you really get into my mind. So if you're intellectual and if you're into all of those, ideas about religion, God, spirituality, society, psychology, philosophy, all that stuff, I'm gonna probably link my podcast in the description. I'll also link my Medium blog in the description as well. Now that that's out the way, I have to restate, I'm excited about editing this video on my M1 Mac Mini, because even editing the last video that I did, well, the first video that I did on this channel, my Mac was kind of like skipping around, and my Mac has 16 gigabytes of memory. So I'm just like, dang, what's going on? And damn sure it was the CPU. There's a CPU. If you have a weak CPU, forget about streaming, forget about anything that requires a fast bit rate or whatever you want to call it, a frame rate, whatever you want to call it, I don't know. But I'm using the iPhone XR to record, and this is the front facing camera, and it's pretty good. It's amazing for what I'm trying to do. Taking that into consideration, editing iPhone XR footage on the 2012 MacBook Pro probably wasn't a good idea. But let me be fair. It's a 2012 MacBook Pro, and this came out in 2018. So they're 6 years apart, and we all know that technology grows and improves and advances at like an exponential pace. It makes sense that these two devices that are 6 years apart, we're gonna have trouble with each other. So yeah, so let's move on. 3 tools that I'm using to study for the CCNA exam. First and foremost, I want to just put this out there. Before studying for CCNA, you should get your CompTIA A+ certification. Start there. Start with your CompTIA A+ certification. I know that in the IT, YouTube, tech realm, whatever you want to call it, everybody's saying, yeah, get your A+, and all of that. It's like cliche at this point. But I really think it's important for you to get the A+, and I'll tell you why. For me personally, getting the A+ certification helped me to read through this book pretty effortlessly. Can you see it? I hope you guys can see it. It helped me to read through this book effortlessly. I'm able to read the book as if it's a novel. A lot of people advise not doing that, but that's what I do. I like to give my textbooks once-overs, and I go over it again and take some notes, and then after that, and do some practice questions. But before I get into the book, because I don't want to get off track here, get your A+ certification before you're studying for this exam. Unless you're really confident and unless you know all the basics and stuff like that, I say get the A+, because it's a great starting point. And I think that getting the A+ familiarizes you with a lot of the terminology that's used in that book, right? It allows for you to read the book in plain English and understand the concepts as you go along, because these concepts, they're complicated, not too complicated, but imagine how much more complicated it's going to be if you have no background in IT knowledge and you're trying to understand things like Ethernet frames, or you're trying to understand the myriad connectors and things of that nature. Like there's the RJ45 connector, BNC connector, different serial connectors, things of that nature. So trying to understand that type of stuff while getting familiar with the concepts or learning the concepts in the book is gonna prove to be a challenge. Hey, if you're up for that challenge, go ahead. Personally, When I first started this journey, I thought that I was just gonna jump into the networking and the cybersecurity stuff and be good to go. Like, I thought that I was literally just gonna go ahead and take the CompTIA Security Plus. But then I realized, I need to get familiar with networking concepts before I start hardening networks. And I decided that I should probably study for Network Plus, right? So I bought the Network Plus book. Still didn't use it to this day. Oh, and if you guys want to CompTIA Network Plus book, I'm probably just gonna give it away to one of you, whoever sees this and hits me up first about it. I'll probably just give it away. But I need to get like a PO box or something like that. So I decided to study for the Network Plus. So as I started studying for the Network Plus, I realized, oh, I don't know what any of this means. I mean, I'm familiar with networking concepts because, as I said in my last video, my dad was a systems engineer, right? And he taught me a lot of basics about networking. But when it comes to the deep concepts, or maybe even not even the deep concepts, the fundamentals, more of the fundamentals, I didn't understand anything. So I said, oh, you know what would be great? I'll go ahead and go study for the CompTIA A+. Started studying for the CompTIA A+. Decided that I don't know what's going on in A+ either. So I went back even further and I started at ITF. Thankfully, I did that because now I think I have a solid foundation for understanding a lot of the basics in these IT certifications. The CompTIA A+ is essentially a springboard into any other certification that you want to get, as far as my knowledge is concerned. Getting the A+ was enough for me to feel confident in starting to study other concepts. I decided to go maybe like the pure networking route. I was thinking about going into cybersecurity. I still am thinking about going into cybersecurity, but I really love network engineering. I just thoroughly love putting networks together. I love tweaking them. I just love learning all of these different protocols and everything. I mean, of course, I'm gonna have some opportunity to get into cybersecurity. I mean, cybersecurity is supposedly a hot field right now. Probably as hot as this car that I'm in, but I really love the networking aspect of IT, which is why I decided to go to CCNA route. A lot of people decide to get the what they call, I believe, the holy trinity of CompTIA, which is the A+, the Network Plus, and the Security Plus. But I decided to go CCNA route. One of my mentors told me, go to CCNA route because it's world-renowned and all of that stuff. I just love Cisco. The first tool that I got to study for the CCNA, got this book right here, CCNA 301 Official Cert Guide. It's kind of heavy, by Wendell Odom. That dude, he can write. He can write in such a way that you understand the concepts. And that's another thing I want to, pretty much kind of like help you guys with. If you're just transitioning into this field, look for writers, right? What do I mean by that? Look for IT professionals to learn from that can write really well, that can convey the topics in a clear, concise manner that's easy for you to understand. And that's partly what inspired me to do these videos, because when I was looking around for a lot of IT information and things of that nature, I'm not knocking any of the other professionals that's taking the time out to teach this stuff, but it was kind of hard for me to understand the material that they were presenting because they weren't presented in a way that I could understand. So I decided to search around and look around for people that I can learn this information from. Not only learn the information from, but get excited about the information as well. That's what Wendell Odom does. And there's another dude that I watch a lot, Network Chuck. Network Chuck is he makes me excited to learn IT. He makes it exciting, right? Like, his passion for this thing is, to me, in my opinion, from anything else that I've seen, unmatched. He was essentially, I would say, the springboard when it comes to IT content for me to look for other IT content that made me excited to learn this stuff. David Bombal, another CCIE in addition to Wendell Odom, who explains the topics in a way that I can understand. For instance, when he was talking about a lot of the CCNA stuff, and he pretty much put us on to the routing protocols that we have to know. And in him explaining that, it made me excited, and also it put me on to what to look for, the important things to look for, the important things to study in CCNA, and that's what I'm doing so far. Find people who you can understand, right? I may explain things because I'm a newbie at this. I'm a newbie at explaining it. But like I said, I'm learning as I go along, which is why I'm making these videos, essentially to learn as I'm going along and to give gems as I'm going along. So find somebody that works for you, right? Find, if it's not this textbook, if this textbook is not working for you, then look for something else that works for you, right? So I use the official Cert guide, and the official Cert guide comes with a lot of nice little perks besides just the textbook, right? I would say read through the textbook first, right? Get a clear, good understanding. Read through the textbook first, especially if you're a newbie at this. Read through the textbook first, understand the concepts, and then go into a lot of the bonus stuff that they have, right? So what do they have? They have video training, flashcards, practice tests. Practice tests are definitely essential from what I know about studying for IT exams. I so far studied for 3 IT exams, the ITF, and the core 1 and 2 of the CompTIA A+. Practice tests definitely put me on to a lot of the material that I was going to be seeing on the exam. And not even just the material, but how the material is going to be presented. And what I found interesting about the CCNA is that as you're progressing through the exam, you can't go back. There's no back button. So once you answer the question, you can't go back. You know, a lot of us like to, especially myself, we like to go back and change our answers. And I think that's a good thing, depending on who you are, especially for me, who tend to get a lot of answers wrong when I go back and change them. I like to second guess myself a lot, apparently. But I think that's a good thing for the CCNA, because I think your first initial response to questions are usually the right answers. When you start overthinking, that's when you end up screwing yourself over and getting, you know, putting the wrong answer, right? The practice tests are essential for any exam because you can see what the playing field is going to look like. That's my little advice there. Oh, not done yet. What else do we have? We have hands-on labs, review exercises, config checklists. I don't know what all of that is. The only thing I know so far, the only thing I played with so far was the practice exams, right? Did I take a No, I didn't take a practice exam. No, I didn't. I did something else. I forgot what I did. I think I went to another website, mixing it up. So that's what I'm using. The book is, get the textbook. Oh, it comes with 2 volumes, volume 1 and volume 2. And I paid about $75 for it on Amazon, and I've been using it ever since. I am approximately almost halfway through the book, as you can probably see. I'm about halfway through the book. You can see some of my subnetting stuff probably. And it's exciting, man. Like, I'm excited about learning this stuff. That's a tall dude. But I'm excited about learning this stuff because technology is just really amazing me nowadays. Apple is doing some amazing things. I'm an Apple boy. But it's really exciting to learn this stuff. And again, if you, like I said in the last video, if you're curious and you're excited to learn this stuff, you're gonna learn so much quicker. And the depth of knowledge, your depth of knowledge is gonna be so much more deeper. And also, get one of these Moleskine notebooks, I believe they're called. Moleskine, yeah. Get a Moleskine notebook, really good. I find that writing my notes down in the Moleskine notebooks, it helped me to focus. Get a Moleskine notebook to go with the textbook, to jot down little notes, to do practice problems when you need to, and you'll be good to go with that. Okay, so second tool that I use Packet Tracer, but not for what you think I use Packet Tracer for. I use Packet Tracer to visualize my network topology whenever I'm playing around with physical routers and switches and things of that nature. I use Packet Tracer. I think it's a great tool for people who can't afford the physical equipment. Packet Tracer is free on Cisco's website. Just Google Packet Tracer Cisco, something like that. Packet Tracer download, and I think you can get it. I think even Even though now I think they're requiring that you give them your email information and all that stuff. I think you got to sign in to get to use it and stuff like that. But it's free at the cost of you giving them your email, which is it's cool. It's fine. It's not that big of a deal, right? So packet tracer. So packet tracer for me, I use it to draw up my network topology, and I'm not trying to act like I'm balling. I'm not trying to flex or nothing like that. But you can use it if you cannot afford any physical equipment, and it's easy to set up. You just get on it and you just start practicing right away. That's what I use, and that's what everybody else is recommending you use. That textbook comes with a version of their own emulator that you can use, and you can learn a lot with that also. I downloaded it. I didn't really do any of the labs. I'm not really an emulator guy. I'm a hands-on type of guy, so I'm not really too excited about emulators. I'm sorry, it's just not my thing. There's another one I believe is called I think it's called GNS3 or something like that. I'm unsure. You could correct me if I'm wrong. But simulate. Packet tracer is solid. You can use packet tracer to learn the concepts, especially CCNA. Learn the basic concepts. You can use the learn command line on there. That's where I started using the command line before I got my equipment. I started using command line on the packet tracer. And what I love about the Cisco command line is that it's pretty straightforward. And I think the only reason why it's pretty straightforward for me is because I went ahead and got that CompTIA A+ certification. Get your CompTIA A+ certification, because I think that CompTIA A+ certification, it prepares you for, it's so broad. It prepares you for so many things. I learned 3 different command lines with the CompTIA A+. I learned Linux, I learned Microsoft, Mac OS, right? I forgot what their actual command line names are, but who needs to remember any of that, right? PowerShell for Microsoft and PowerShell ISC. Anyway, let me stop downplaying it. You're really gonna need to know. You're really gonna need to know that stuff and at least be familiar with it. I'm not saying that you got to be some type of pro on the command line, but at least get familiar with it. By far the most exciting command line that I worked on is Linux. Learn Linux. Linux is actually good. Linux is dope. Learn Linux. I should probably do a video on some Linux stuff that I learned along the way. There's basic stuff on Linux, like how to create a file, how to copy a file, how to create a website. Should be pretty straightforward on Linux. Didn't do it before, but it's pretty straightforward. I watched somebody do it on YouTube. So that's the same thing, right? No? Yeah, just learn the basics of Linux. Get familiar with it. Learn the language, especially if you're scared of a lot of the Linux command line stuff, or just command line in general. A lot of people get scared when they hear command line. I don't know why. Initially, I did at first, but in my last video, I said I started out with command line. So, yeah, that's pretty much that for packet tracer. Get packet tracer. It's really it's an asset. It's an asset. I think it's an asset for you to learn or to play around with. Number 3, get a physical lab. Get a physical lab. Get a lab. One of the first things I noticed in the IT world, or the education of the IT world, is how people downplay needing a lab is so prevalent. People downplay labs, like they think they could just emulate their way through it. Maybe you can to pass the exam, but my mentor told me you're going to need to actually obviously know how to physically configure all of these things. And when you go on a job interview, they're gonna want to know that you can physically configure these type of things. I'm just saying what he said. He said that they don't like the whole of course you passed your CCNA and whatever, but they don't like to hear that only equipment that people have worked on, or the only exposure to equipment, is through packet tracer, right? That's what people call a paper CCNA or what have you. And look, I'm not trying to jump on one side or the other, because it seems to be like this debate between physical labs and virtual labs and stuff like that. Look, I just think that it's way more practical to learn on the lab. Now, again, if you don't have the money, go ahead and do packet tracer and then figure it out as you go along. That's one of the most underrated things you can do with anything in life. With anything in life. And I'm gonna get a little motivational here. Take the first step. Once you take the first step, all other steps are gonna make itself known to you, right? You don't need to have everything figured out right away. Start with what you have. right? Like I'm starting this YouTube channel with a iPhone XR, and I started with a MacBook Pro. Now I got the M1 Mac Mini. Dope. But start with what you have. If you really can't afford the lab, get the packet tracer and work with that. You'll get some exposure to the equipment, serial cards and stuff like that. Speaking of serial cards, so I think the benefits of having a home lab, Cisco home lab or any type of lab, you run into troubleshooting scenarios. For example, I had bought my lab from certificationkits.com. Great website, great service and everything. I had bought 3 Cisco 1841 routers, and I bought 2 2960 Catalyst switches. They're layer 2 switches, and I bought 1 layer 3 switch. 3 routers, 3 switches. Now you don't have to do that. You could do 2 routers and 2 switches, right? I think the CCNP requires 3 routers and 3 switches, but I bought 3 routers and 3 switches because I want to connect up and emulate WAN links, right, through to each router or what have you. So when I said I had to run into troubleshooting scenarios, I mean it. So I had ordered everything off of Certification Kits, and then when I did that, I found out that I need an extra plug for an adapter for the console cable, right? Because console cable is how you're going to configure these equipments. You can also telnet in or secure shell into the equipment as well, but you'd have to be on the network to do that. I think you'd only be able to do that with the switches. The switches out of the box, I think they're ready to go, but don't quote me on that. The console cables, get familiar with using the console cables. You're gonna have to download PuTTY. You're gonna have to work with all of you're gonna have to work in Device Manager if you're using Windows. You're gonna have to really figure out how to use this console cable. Trouble I ran into again is that I needed the adapter, because the console cable is typically a serial. A serial has a serial end. It has like an RJ45 end, and then it has the serial end where you plug in. You have to plug in an adapter so that you can connect it via USB to whichever machine that you're using. Yeah, and I believe they have the console cable that goes from RJ45 to USB, or am I just thinking about the adapter? I think I'm just thinking about the adapter. Anyhow, that's something that I ran into. That's a problem that I ran into. I had to end up ordering an extra piece on Amazon and all that stuff. The issue now that I ran into with getting the routers connected is that I found out that I needed serial connections. Well, you don't necessarily need the serial connections, but I want to learn the serials because I'm just like that. I'm very curious about how these things work from different angles. So I had to purchase 6 serial cards. Now, if you don't have the money for this stuff, it can start to add up. It started to add up. I had to work through that. That's the beauty about getting physical lab equipment. You learn what you need and why you need it, and you learn how it works, right? Because that's what we're labbing for. Even when you have the CompTIA A+, you should have a lab, and your lab could be as simple as a laptop setup that has sufficient RAM and CPU power so that you can spin up any type of virtual machine that you want, because you're going to be learning about how to install virtual machines on the A+. That's the lab that I had. I had my networking equipment, which is not Cisco, and I had my laptop where I just spun up my virtual machines. I got Kali Linux, such a beautiful version of Linux. This is when I was learning Linux. I ended up downloading, installing different forms of virtual machines, Windows, different flavors of Linux, things of that nature. It's good to have these stuff because you get real familiar with tinkering around, and I guarantee you will pass the exam on your first try if you have a lab, because on the exam you're going to be able to visualize how all of these type of things work, right? And I think that's the key to how I passed my exams on the first try. I passed all of my exams on the first try because I'm curious. I want to know how these things work. I ventured out to download the right software, to buy the proper machinery so I could learn these things. Cisco lab. I have a Cisco lab, and I'm so happy that I bought it, because I'm learning so many things every day by playing around with it. Every time I'm playing around with it, I learn something new. You get to feel for how everything works. You gain way more confidence. You're confident once you start using Cisco equipment. That's another thing. Once you start using the highly coveted Cisco equipment, the proprietary Cisco equipment, and you're working through it all and you're getting it and you're understanding, even if you mess up at first, you're still gaining valuable experience, because that's what's going to happen in the field, right? You're going to be bumping into things, hopefully not literally, but you're going to be bumping into troubleshooting situations where you're going to have to sit there and you're going to have to figure it the heck out. And that's the beauty of it for me, is to bump into these things and figure it out as I go along. And I don't know, you just can't do that with an emulator. And again, I'm not knocking you if the only thing that you can afford is to get the packet tracer, but I cannot emphasize anymore, get your hand on some sort of lab, right? I believe you can get some routers and switches for like 80 bucks a piece on eBay. People are selling these things cheap on eBay. Go ahead and go out and get that, right? So that's pretty much that. Just a summary: textbook, packet tracer, lab. And also, again, pick up one of these. Get one of these. Moleskine notebook, right? You can write down your thoughts and journal a little bit if you want. That's what I did. And just have fun with it. Have fun with it. Have fun with this journey. I know I am. I'm having fun making these videos, and even making these videos and putting these stuff up, I'm drawing from my CompTIA A+ knowledge, right? I'm drawing from all of that. So, I don't know. This video is 40 minutes long. This is gonna be a monster to edit, but I'm gonna test it out. I'm gonna test it out on my M1 Mac Mini, right? So that's pretty much all I have to say. And somewhere down the line, I'm gonna be doing some videos on, some study time videos, and I'll talk to you guys next time.